Welcome to USA Global TV and Radio, where our mission is to provide education, entertainment, hope, and inspiration. USA Global TV and Radio connects you with experts and audiences all around the world every single day to help you succeed in business and to live a richer life. Visit us at usaglobaltv.com to learn about career and life-changing training and mentoring programs like the Listening Mentor. Subscribe to our newsletter to stay informed about our special programs and offers. Discover how you can become a guest on one of our shows or a host or producer of a USA Global TV and Radio show of your very own. That's USA Global TV and Radio, where the doctor is always in.
Howdy y'all, red.olaughlin here. This is Talking Heads on the USA Global TV and Radio Network. Let me go ahead and load up the slides and we'll start our conversation today. Okay. My topic today, hopefully it's just today, is on what would I do if I found out today I had cancer. This came up via a social media post on Instagram. I think Dr. Eric Bird, I'll talk about a bit later, but pop up and says, what would I do? And he says, first thing I'd do is I'd fast for 10 days. Well, okay, that caught my attention. And so I said, let me see if I can put together something. What would I do personally if I found out I had it? And this show, as always, is on Amazon Fire, Zizzle, 360 TV, E360 TV, YouTube, and many, many more. It's a live streaming show. You can catch podcast versions of the audio versions. You can catch just about everything on the YouTube USA Global TV portion of that. So let me go ahead and move to the next one. As a disclaimer, I'm a researcher. I've never been in the medical or pharmaceutical fields. My first love in life really was chemistry, sophomore in high school. For whatever reason, it just connected and I got a degree in it. I also have 4 more degrees, but in totally different subjects. All of them are different. But what I do nowadays is I take my chemistry background and I look in the human body at the cellular level and saying, okay, what's going on? What's happening? What's causing things? So if I'm looking at an age-related disease, what can I do to slow it down, stop it? And what do I not want to do with regard to speeding it up? So I look for causes. Treat a cause, you fix a problem. Treat symptoms, and you'll always be treating symptoms. However, sometimes when you treat symptoms, you're hiding the real damage that's occurring because you're just covering up. I've had dry eye probably 10 years, maybe more. And it wasn't until the last 3 years I was having a problem bad enough, burning and itching and whatever, that I had to go see somebody. I saw an ophthalmologist and they gave me the drops. Okay, fine. The drops work sometimes, they don't always work. But the dry eye is there. Happened to catch, my wife actually found it for me, an article on somebody who treats dry eyes from the cause of dry eyes. So, okay, why not? Let's go ahead and take a look at it. So I had a conversation with him last week, and he actually is looking at the tear ducts and what is causing them to erode or not function or whatever. And there's 4, 5, 6 different things they do. I had 2 of them done yesterday. I'll have 2 more done on Saturday, and I'll have another one on next Monday. So I've begun this process of treating the actual cause of dry eye rather than just taking drops for the burning and dryness and itchiness and everything else. So there's a lot of damage that can occur because you're hiding the problem. As always, my programs are for awareness and education. Okay, following up here, my audience is my accountability partner. I started a program called What Can I Do Now, so that when January 1st rolls around, I've already accomplished my New Year's resolutions and they became a new habit in my life. So I set out, I recorded everything last week, and I'm down 3.2 pounds in a week. My body mass index is down 0.6, body fat down 0.7, subcutaneous fat down almost a full %. Visceral fat was 12.4, it's now 12.1. My basal metabolic rate's down 12. That kind of surprised me a little bit. I guess you're losing weight, you lose a little bit of BMR. My body age was no change. My waist, in the fullest part of my gut, I've lost an inch. Right in my where I wear a belt, there's no change. No change in my arm, thigh measurements. However, and I mentioned my neck is the first place that I find it. Gain weight or lose weight. I'm down a half inch in my neck. No real improvement in standing on polystyrene foam. Still around 10 seconds, but I have done very little to work that. And trying to get rid of my turkey neck, I've at least started some exercises on that. So let's get into my topic today. What would I do if my doctor told me today I had cancer? Well, be surprised, primarily because I have annual physicals, haven't missed one since 1967. Just had one in October, and I get a couple extra tests. One of the tests is called C-reactive protein. It tells you how much inflammation is in the body. So if you have a tumor growing someplace, that's a lot of information. Well, most of the time, my C-reactive protein, my CRP, is literally almost zero. It's unmeasurable unless you get the highly sensitive CRP, but it's down in that 0.25 or below range. So that would surprise me if I found something. But other things that surprise me too. But I'd want to know what type of cancer. You know, if it's liver cancer, pancreatic cancer, that's got my attention right away. If it's a melanoma, okay, it's got my attention. Kidney cancer, you know, lung cancer. There's lots of them out there, but yeah, I'd like to know. Okay, where's it at? What do we have to do to find out exactly where it's at? How bad is it? Is it benign? Is it whatever? Is it a common cancer or is it something rare? What are my treatment options? Lots of things out there. I'm going to go a little bit more into that down the road. But the first thing that comes to my mind is what's the cause? And I've always been a cause and effect kind of person. I've had an interest in it, but professionally, I used to do it for a company I work for, Halliburton. And we had make downhole tools, manufacture, and they'd take the tool out and it would fail. And my job, one of my jobs was why? Why did it fail? What caused the failure? And part of that's from a reliability engineering perspective. You look at if it's going to fail, is it going to fail open or closed? How hard is it going to be to replace something? Lots of aspects where you get a lot of experts around, and we have a failure modes effects analysis, and we look at how can we make this thing more reliable, easier to repair, whatever. And so from a cause and effect perspective with downhole tools and oil industry to the human body and diseases, the cause is very important to me. Typically, disease comes from stress, toxins, radiation, inflammation. There's another one in there that has an I. My brain fog from my shingles is erupting now and then. But the big one probably is diet and toxins. I'd also want to know who my care team is. You know, do I need a second opinion? Do I need a specialist? How soon do I want people to know? My family, the world. If I'm not in a situation where I need a caregiver, but maybe this will cause me to need a caregiver. How much time do I have? My legal papers, you know, my lots of things, religious issues, a lot of things that are all wrapped up in that particular moment of the time. Okay, I need to start writing this down because if I don't write it down, it's not going to happen. And that's been my gospel for the last 10 years at least, because my ability to remember stuff, when in my 50s, I can remember anything. You know, here I am almost 80 and still having a little bit of problems trying to remember things. So who else that I know of, family or friends, had the same kind of cancer? What process, what did they use? Was there anything natural they did? Did they just follow the advice? If it's a stage 1, you don't necessarily need chemo and radiation. If it's stage 2, now you start talking chemo and radiation. Where were they at? What was advised? What did they do? And did they do any actual natural things there? My wife had diagnosed with breast cancer about 2013, 14. And for about a year, we had been treating it with a natural option. But the problem was you could feel the lump, and then 10 minutes later, you couldn't feel it. And so Is it really there or is it not there? So, and then when you can finally feel it 2 or 3 times in a row, you say, okay, we need to go in and see somebody. And that's when a biopsy was done, and she had stage 2 breast cancer. She had radiation, she had chemo. But maybe we should have had the biopsy done much earlier. But we battled this thing for about a year with natural options. And then finally, the decision was made, okay, we're going to have surgery, get it removed. Thank you very much, end of story. But when I start looking at cancer, and I've done a few shows on that, go back and check on the USA Global TV and Radio Network playlist on YouTube, and you can find my discussions on cancer. And I talk a little bit about the genetic versus metabolic disorder. And genetic is the way literally everything is treated with regard to cancer in the United States. There's a certain expectation of treatment. There's a word for it, and I'm at a loss to fill out. Standard of care. And the standard of care says this is what we do. We treat it with radiation, we treat it with chemotherapy, we treat it with other things, but there's a certain mechanism because you're treating the disease as a genetic disease. However, if you look at the disease as a metabolic disorder, totally different world. If you look at, let's say, 5-year survival rate for stage 4 pancreatic cancer, it's generally about 4%. 96% of the people in 5 years have died. However, if you treat it as a metabolic disorder, about 96% of the people in 5 years survive. Why don't we do that? It's not the standard of care in the United States. For whatever reason, it's not being recognized. You got to go to Cairo or Istanbul or someplace else in the world to have that metabolic disorder treatment rather than the genetic disorder treatment. But what would I do first 10 days, 10 to 60 days, a year or longer? Well, let's take a look at that. First, before I do that, let me just get in. Dr. Thomas Seafield is a cancer researcher. He has some magnificent videos out there where he's talking about cancer, what it does, but he is the one that really, I guess, became the father, for lack of a better word, of this metabolic disorder function. And when you look at it from a metabolic perspective, he's treating his patients with the standard of care, but with more emphasis on the metabolic aspects of it. Dr. Terry Walls is an internist. She came down with MS very late in life, and I found her book, The Walls Protocol, to be very effective in the treatment of fatigue with regard to chemotherapy. So if I was looking at, okay, what am I going to start doing? I'm going to probably start switching over and looking at her regimen, because if I have to undergo something, I already want to be in the regimen. So it's, what am I going to change? What am I going to add or delete to my lifestyle, my choices? Well, some of the additions will be, what are the factors in the Walls Protocol? It's primarily leafy green vegetables, colored fruits and vegetables where the color goes all the way through the entire fruit or vegetable, like a blueberry, not like an eggplant. What's my pH? Typically, and this is one of those things that they say cancer can't live in a high pH, alkaline pH. Yeah, there's a lot to be said for that. I don't know whether it is or isn't, but something that I can do to make that happen. Not the pH of my blood, but the pH of my body. Alcohol, toxins, probably have to really look at what I have coming in, supplements, etc. We'll talk a little bit more about supplements. Exercise, hydration, address my stress, anything I can do to improve my immune system. What am I going to be deleting? Right off the bat, carbs, gluten, and dairy. And why, let me go back, why gluten and dairy? Because there is a molecule in gluten, and again, I wish I had put it on the slide, but the mirror image of it is dairy. So if you have a gluten sensitivity or an issue with gluten, chances are you might have a dairy one, but why take a chance? Because I want to have good gut health. That's the whole reason for giving up gluten and dairy. So first 10 days, Dr. Eric Berg, he said, do it fast. I've done, I think, 2 11-day fasts. Not difficult. I used to do up until June when I came down with shingles. I used to do a 3-day fast every month. I'm trying to get back into that, but just for whatever reason, my mind is not supporting me. But there's a lot of supplements out there that can help, a lot of foods. I want fast, you're basically activating the autophagy process in the body, which cleans up the cells, make them more efficient, more effective. And you're also helping your gut health. And so if you're having issues with gut, you're also affecting your immune system. 80% of your immune system is in your gut. That's where you really need to start. Dr. Warburg won a Nobel Prize, I think back in the 20s or 30s. He talked about glucose and cancer, and that if you remove glucose from your body, cancers will die. And he got a Nobel Prize, a lot of research into that. And everything worked well for a while, but then they started finding out, well, we took glucose away from this patient and he died of cancer. So there was automatically a lot of, maybe that doesn't work for everyone. Well, it wasn't until literally decades later that they found out that cancers not only love glucose, some of them 100%, that's all they do. You take glucose away and they die. But other ones also like glutamine, an amino acid. However, our bodies make glutamine. So you get glucose from the food you eat. We don't manufacture it in our bodies, but you get glutamine from foods and from our bodies. So if we're not getting it from our foods, our body's going to make it. That's kind of a catch-22. So how do I eliminate, easy to eliminate glucose? How do I eliminate glutamine? And there are some things out there that will help. I think berberine is one of them, if I remember right. But when you're looking at Seafield, Dr. Seafield's process, they actually have, I think it's called DON, it's a drug, and there's some drugs out there that will actually stop the precursor of the glutamine manufacturing in the body. So they're not stopping glutamine, they're actually stopping a chemical that reacts and says, okay, let's stop this glutamine production. So now you can take it from I'm not eating any foods with glutamine to something that will actually physically inhibit glutamine from being formed in the body. So the first 10 days, I want to do research. I want to know what's going on. What can I do? The next 60 days, that's where I'm starting to develop a new habit with regard to what do I need to change in my lifestyle. If I need to schedule chemo, okay, reluctantly, I may do that. I don't know. I may talk to about other options and see what can be done. There's immuno options. There's all sorts of things out there. Definitely going to have to control my stress. That's going to be something that's going to be way high up on my list, if not hourly, at certainly several times a day. But I need to really monitor my diet. I need to exercise, believe it or not, has to happen. As much as I may not want to do something, it's going to have to be in there. I used to do a whole lot, and over time you get older with different priorities anyway. But nutrition is going to become my friend. What can I do to help myself nutritionally? And then whatever I'm learning from that is going to be part of that cancer growth process. I want to look at what are the processes by which cancer grows that I can slow down, stop, etc. So if I'm looking at cancer growth, there's several well-known processes. One's called angiogenesis. Sorry for the misspelling on that one, but angiogenesis. And that's where the cancer tumor actually grows new blood vessels. Now, sometimes we have this in our bodies. I found out a couple of years ago that when my left anterior descending artery was clogged, my heart grew two new blood vessels, one across the front, one across the back, down to the blockage. They did a, what do you call it, where they go in and look. I had the doctor put a instrument into my heart, and they looked at what was there, catheterization. And the doctor came back and says, okay, you have two new blood vessels. You don't need a stent. Everything's fine. Well, I was at my cardiovascular surgeon this week because I have a problem with peripheral artery disease. All this is caused by Agent Orange back from Vietnam. And all of a sudden he's saying, well, it looks like your body has grown a lot. They call them collaterals, new blood vessels around areas where things are starting to slow down. So the artery is starting to collapse a little bit. Well, the blood vessels are growing around and providing the needed blood. And so now I'm on a 4-month monitoring program rather than a 6-month monitoring program for my peripheral artery disease. But I have processes that I'm going to be looking at for that. What can I do to reduce the amount of plaque inside my my arteries, both my heart and my legs. So that's another project that I'm working on. But this angiogenesis, if I'm looking at it, there's some natural options that I can do. And if I had a tumor, then I'd be looking at increasing my curcumin, the epigallocatechin gallate, the EGCG that's in green tea, resveratrol, and actually super increasing my vitamin E. Some of the tocotrienols are very good. So I'm looking at natural angiogenesis inhibition. And with curcumin, with resveratrol, strongly recommend that you add make sure that whatever you're taking has the black pepper extract, piperine. It just makes it exponentially more bioavailable in the body. But there's another thing, there's several of them out there. I just decided to go with a couple. TKIs, the tyrosine kinase inhibitors. It's something that inhibits the cancer from growing. And again, there's drugs out there, but from a natural perspective, genistein, curcumin, quercetin, resveratrol, some of the same things that on the angiogenesis side of the house do. So I want to look at what natural options I can do to incorporate that either into the foods I eat or into something else that I can take. And again, I want to try to keep my body in that alkaline range, something above 7.0 most of the time. So that would be my focus on the cancer aspects of it. What supplements would I be interested in? Well, phosphorus, ALA, alpha lipoic acid, vitamin E, all 8 parts of vitamin E. You have 4 tocotrienols and 4 tocopherols, vitamin D, vitamin C, PQQ, perilla, quinoline, quinone. Very definitely, that's a really interesting molecule. Mainly works in the brain, but it's something our bodies need. A lot of omega-3, malic acid, CoQ10. And CoQ10, there's 2 different varieties out there on the marketplace. One of them is fairly cheap. The other one's 3 times the price. I hate to say this, but buy the one that's 3 times the price because it is way more bioavailable in the body. Ubiquinone and ubiquinol are the 2 primary ones. The ubiquinone, I believe, is the one that's the cheap one. Ubiquinol is the one that actually is what our body makes after we take it in. So if you can already make the product that the body uses, that becomes far, far better. Niacinamide, and there's other ones. But you look out there, what supplements should I be taking if I had some kind of cancer? And there are a lot of them. I'd also spend more than a few minutes a day on YouTube. Survivors of pancreatic cancer, survivors of whatever cancer I may happen to have, because those are real life adventures. I remember Dr. Seafried interviewing this guy who had stage 4, I can't think of the name of the liver, I think. But he went on an amazing adventure. They gave him 3 months to live, and years later, he's still doing the same things he did in order to survive. It's not a pretty picture, but it worked. It depends on what your quality of life is. They've had other people that, okay, the person just went fasting. Well, they didn't eat anything. The cancer died, but they died also. So there has to be some rationale and good decision making that if you're going to do something, do it. But let's monitor things as you go along. Let's make sure that what we're doing is working. And maybe once a month you need to go in and get blood test. I don't know. But that's between you and your doctor, you and your family. What are the things that you need to be doing? Who can help you? And how much more information can you get? If you find out tomorrow that, I'm just pull something out of the air. Let's say that red light therapy is good for a certain kind of cancer. Well, that doesn't make sense. Do some research on it. Google is one of your best friends. Actually, YouTube, I think, is probably a better researcher in many cases because it tells you specifically what you want to know rather than going into Google and saying, does uric acid cause Alzheimer's? Well, you ask the question, what causes Alzheimer's? You're never going to get to uric acid because that's not the way that algorithm works. You have to actually ask it questions. So anyway, that being said, I can be found at red.olaughlin.com. That's REDOLAUGHLIN, red.olaughlin.com. And my emails are red@red.olaughlin.com or red.olaughlin@gmail.com. That being said, you can find my books on Amazon, and my website's being updated, and they'll be available very shortly on my website. So with that, I'm closing out today. I'll catch you next week. I don't know what I'm going to talk about, but it'll be something interesting. Take care, y'all. Bye now.
5 Little Known Secrets for Dementia Caregivers with Tracy Cram Perkins.
Hi there, I am Tracy Cram Perkins, the host of the Dementia Home Care Show here on USA Global TV and Radio. I am also the author of the book of the same name. And you'll see this QR code. This is for an extended version of the same talk. So if you want to see the full hour-long version, feel free to scan the code and go to that website. Stick with me. We'll talk about 5 little known secrets to make it a little easier to do dementia caregiving. What you're seeing on the left-hand side is a healthy aged brain, age 55 and above. The one you're seeing on the right is an Alzheimer's disease brain. It is in moderate disease. It is shrinking. It has holes in it. The memories that were in those holes no longer exist. When you're learning something, let's say in kindergarten, you learned how to tie your shoelace. Well, then by the time you're in 2nd grade, your brain remembers that information from tying the shoelace and applies it so you can learn more quickly how to tie more complex knots. So the brain is hardwired to do this for us. So it helps us learn faster so it doesn't take us long to acquire knowledge. The brain is looking for the information and they pick the closest to wherever that hole is. Let's look at some tips that we can use to help do that.
These are 5 simple tools you can use as a dementia caregiver to help your loved one. The whiteboard is a useful tool in recording the day's activities and the answers to repetitive questions. The calendar clock is a very useful tool to orient your loved one on the day, the date, and the time, and remind them of upcoming appointments. The communication cards are a great tool to bridge the gap when they can no longer tell you what's wrong. And then there's the pill minder for when your loved one is still able to take pills but needs prompting. The final tool I want to share with you is the memory book. It tells your loved one's story. It's a great tool for distraction, redirection, also as a conversation starter, and telling you where they are in their story so you know how to answer their questions.
Music is probably the most powerful tool in your toolbox after laughter. Music is a way to maintain connection. It sticks with your brain longer than any other thing, including reading. When you're having an issue with somebody, you can play their favorite music if you move them to another room, something that makes them happy, or you can start singing songs together from their childhood. These are some of my favorite books for caregivers. My show airs on the 3rd Tuesday of every month, and you can view past episodes on YouTube. Thank you, everyone.
This program has been brought to you in part by Tracy Cram Perkins. Connect with her and order her book at tracycramperkins.com. For more information about Alzheimer's disease, support resources, and how you can help, contact the Alzheimer's Association at 1-800-272-3900 or visit their website at www.alz.org. They offer 24/7 helpline support and a wealth of information to assist you and your loved ones.